Oh, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday night, and this is Attack on the Politicos. It is the NDSC Sports Political Show. I'm your host, Ralph Garcia, of course, joined by the coach, Glenn Gotti. What's up, coach?
Not much. Not much.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Coach just told a lie, but in this day and age, that's normal. Uh, Remember the website. It is ndscsports.com where you catch all of your current content. Log on to the website right now. And Matthew Wilder, our guy up in Cleveland, he gives us off-season bold prediction. Guardians will be spenders. I don't know. They're not notorious spenders, but a run to the American League Championship Series might want to change their mind if they want to compete and get to the World Series. John Doucette gives us Boston College plays final road game at SMU on Saturday. After a 4-1 start, Boston College is struggling to get bowl eligible. So good luck to Boston College. John Doucette also gives us America East basketball news and notes. Off and running college basketball season is underway. That and more. We're in dscsports.com, where we never stop. And of course, the election's over. I need to refresh the Facebook page while I'm talking here so I can share the show. But the election's over. Donald Trump has won. On social media, I get they've been reminding me over and over again. Trump won. Trump won. Did you know Trump won? Get over it. Hey, Trump won. Listen, I was listening to one of the stations. I don't know what it was. Not watching the election, listening. I like listening because when you watch, you can't help but watch the guy or the gal at the board. But when you're listening, you got to listen to the words. And one thing that got me real early was when I heard that in a lot of the counties, there was a lot of counties Trump was already overperforming. And the trend was right. So he won. Now, I want to go over a few things here. This is my open monologue. I've seen a lot of shit in my life. A lot of shit in my life. I've seen some shit y'all will never know. But one of the things I take pride in, my dad always pushed the newspaper on me. He had the Daily News delivered, the New York Post delivered, and when he was out and about, which was every day, he'd bring home the New York Times. Hey, boy, read this. Hey, boy, come here. Read this. No. And Dad, where's the sports page? Did I give you the fucking sports page? No, I want to read the sports. I didn't give you the sports page for a reason. Read it. Fucking news, politics. All right, I got to read it, so I read it. Hey, guy knew he was doing it. He went about the wrong way, but he was right. So when I was a little boy, before I became a teenager, there was a thing called Watergate. And it was big. As an 11, 12-year-old kid, I didn't understand yet the scumbags that were in Washington. What I knew at that time was my perception of politics, especially the White House and the president, was the highest office in the land, which included the highest office of morals and values and dignity and respect and all that shit. Wouldn't be too long before I found out the truth, but at that time, that's what I knew. That was like the first great event that I remember, and then I remembered the Ronald Reagan being governor of California. Right? It was like the fuck. God, he's a fucking actor. He fucking became the governor of California. He won 2 terms. They said he was going to run for president. It's like, the hell? So, I mean, at that time, for me, and I know for a lot of the country, the thought was, so the fucking actor who became the governor of California, now says he's going to be the president. So he went against Jimmy Carter. And we know that 270 is the magic number for the electoral college. Ronald Reagan got 489 to Jimmy Carter's 43. Okay, I mean, look, if what Trump did, if what Biden did, if those people had landslides, what do you? First of all, as a coach of football, and coach is a coach, I don't know, to get your ass whooped 489 43. It's a pretty bad day. And then 4 years later, the mother of all fucking landslides, 525 electoral college votes to 13 for Walter Mondale. 13. So I remembered that, like, holy shit. Reaganomics, Iran-Contra started to really like, whoa. And media getting bigger too, getting the news out more. Then with Bill Clinton. Hey, look, I always said, it's not the most moral thing to do in the world. Heather's with us. Hi, Coach. Hi, Ralph. Hi, Heather. But look, there was a lot of us that said, hey, dude, got a blowjob in the White House. Damn. It's like, holy shit. Like, it's not nice, but almost in a way, kind of cool motherfucker right there. How do you pull that shit off? But he was a scumbag. But we also know Bill Clinton and the economy that came with Bill Clinton, which was his signature. You say whatever the hell you want about Bill Clinton, okay? When it comes to presidents getting us on the right, when it comes to money, Bill Clinton was all green going up. I got him listed too, man. Then there were the Bushes. Again, this is just for me. There were the Bushes. Bush Daddy. Now, this is what's key. Here goes, Coach. George Dad, who ran on a kinder and gentler nation. 1,000 points of life. He wanted to be a force for the good. I didn't agree with most of his fucking policies, but it was political rhetoric you were used to hearing, especially from the Republican Party. Then his son became president. And they chided the son because they said fucking Georgie was a dumb motherfucker. I don't know. Sometimes he seemed intellectually challenged. Right. But with him, he was more of a centrist than most Republicans. And he ran on a platform, Republican now, check it out, to bring integrity and honor to the White House. I've always said that. I don't agree with shit on the fucking Bush's policies. But don't anybody ever question the dignity, the respect that they always had for the office, all of that. Those are the good people, the decent people. And it was Barack Obama, first black president. Holy shit. The fucking junior senator from Illinois who had a nice rap. And the brothers and sisters said, oh, shit. And the white folks said, hey, wait a minute, man. Maybe this might not be so stupid. And he wins. Obamacare. Holy shit. What a signature. Almost finished, Coach. So here's where I'm going. All those, and there are many, we can pick other moments, obviously. Jimmy Carter, other things, but all those moments for me from the White House. Still, no matter what, of all the names, you say what you want about Bill Clinton, what he did with Monica Lewinsky, each one of those men at least did honor the White House and what it stood for in the office of the presidency. Or at least in Bill's case, he slipped up for a second. But he did too, right? And then in 2015, Donald Trump came down a golden escalator. So I'm going to finish it with this: divisiveness, hate, chaos, lies, corruption. And by the way, people, for those of you that might say, "Oh, fucking liberal, you fucking leftist," fuck you. Let me tell you why. Because if Donald Trump was a Democrat, you would touch. I'm talking about the conservatives and Republicans. Okay, you wouldn't touch him. He wouldn't have to change anything about him. He could be the same as if he was blue. See the Democratic above me. If he was blue, you'd be talking the same shit about him that we do. Number two, before I turn it to the coach and our first topic, which is going to be a long ass topic anyway. Uh, for all of you who bow down, worship Trump, who somehow, some way in your minds, he's never wrong. He makes no mistake. He's done nothing wrong. Everybody else is wrong and lying, and it's everybody else's fault. Leave the situation the same. All the crimes, all the accusations, all the quotes, all the lies. Don't change anything. Just take Trump out and put Biden, Harris, or a Democrat in his place. You would all be begging for that motherfucker to be slaughtered. And rightfully so. Because we would too. Especially if we voted for him. But this is where we are today. So, Trump wins. And, Coach, the last time that Trump was president-elect, it took him a freaking hell of a while to pick his cabinet. He was new at the job. He's not new anymore. He knows where he went wrong. And the new administration is starting to take shape. I'm going to go first to an easy one for me, Coach. Susie Wiles, one of the two people that ran his successful, because that's what it was, successful campaign. Hey, Democrats, get over it because they won, and they won because they knew what the fuck they were doing. She becomes the chief of staff, Coach. Her job will be to bring order to the White House. Hey, Coach, Susie Wiles, what say you?
You know, I don't know much about her. What I do know is that, you know, she commented about, you know, with her in that position, you know, she'll be able to keep the crazies out of the White House, out of the Oval Office. You know, she'll be the guardian at the gate, if you will. The problem is it's the crazy asshole behind the desk that you know is at stake here. The rest of the people that come and go, they're nobodies compared to what Donald Trump is going to do. The thing about, you pointed it out with his previous administration, what he tried to do is get qualified, respected individuals that the Republicans, senators and stuff could get behind for the nominations and to confirm them into place. And he needed a lot of help in those departments and as a cabinet because he didn't know what to do as a president. And he needed people that were, you know, basically that were in tune with how the government functions. Now he knows that it doesn't matter, you know, how it functions as long as things that he wants gets done. And so now he's up to more about picking people that will carry out the orders and just do exactly what he wants done. So I don't care who's chief of staff. If Donald Trump wants to meet with somebody, as crazy as it is, even if she was so good, she's running the campaign and he's got that, you know, that woman flying around the country with him during the campaign, that some right-wing crazy girl, you know, sitting in next to the seat with him and showing up in pictures and stuff. These are the kind of people that, you know, they claim they're going to try to limit the exposure to Donald Trump, but these are the kind of people he embraces and that he needs for his ego. There's people that come and go around him are going to be the yes people, and they're going to go along with whatever he says.
And we're going to go through the picks. Giovanni Laurenti, one of my favorite fucking names anywhere. Friend of mine joins us on a baseball show every now and then, but let me say that name again, Coach. Giovanni Laurenti has a long one here. Here's his O2. The Democrats went wrong because they pander to the wrong people. They're not speaking the average American's language. Also want to point out that Trump was a registered Democrat throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. I also want to point out the same points that the 80s Democrats ran on their platforms. Republicans are running on the same things by and large. Democrats of today are severely far left, and as I said in the beginning, are out of touch with the listen, Gio. You know what, Coach? It's not. You can't argue with a lot of what he said there.
I think he's absolutely right. And you opened the segue with Ronald Reagan talking about his landslide victories, unmatched by any other candidate. But what you have to take into account there is the turmoil, in the 70s when right after Watergate, you had Ford for a brief stint, and then you had the election of Jimmy Carter, who was a New Hope kind of president, but he was hit with gas prices that were, skyrocketing, the oil crisis with OPEC, inflation, unemployment, all these factors all at the same time. And Ronald Reagan was able to construct something that I think hit a note with everybody, because remember, back before these partisan politics, your TV channel, whether you watched ABC, NBC, CBS, that was kind of your limited exposure. There was no cable. There was no CNN. There was no such thing as MSNBC or Fox News or any of that stuff. You only got your news through your news channels. You get your 60 Minutes. Maybe you had something on Sunday, with Charles Kuralt, those kinds of programs. But everybody was watching the same news. There wasn't this division of news. So when the Americans were watching, Ronald Reagan didn't pander to a particular side of the aisle. He pandered to the American people. Trump used the quote, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? That was Ronald Reagan's statement that swept America. When he first used that, I think it was an eye-opener for so many of the voters. Was like, wow, you know what? No, I'm not. So what do I have to lose to give this man a chance if he thinks he's going to make my situation better after his first 4 years, And that's exactly what happened. I mean, but it's one of those things where some of the policies that Jimmy Carter tackled, the effects occurred after he left office. So Ronald Reagan gets credit for, a booming economy. But I think that was going to happen anyways. If Jimmy Carter had gotten a second term, the economy was going to be in the same place that it was. Ronald Reagan spent and drove up the national debt. He came up with a tax program that, again, it was a typical Republican tax program that gave the Republicans, the tax cuts for the rich. That happened. All that trickle-down economics was a big deal for him. That was his big policy. But the difference was that, again, he had the American population, not just one segment. Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about my vote. There's no fact about it. It's just the way it is. He doesn't care about my vote. And so he has this whole other avenue of reaching the public that matters to him. And so do the Democrats at this point. They're not going to reach a Fox viewer and get them to change their mind. But I agree with what Giovanni says, is that we're sending out the wrong message. And the wrong message is this, okay? Stop being an ass kiss about immigration, okay? No, there shouldn't be any such thing as open borders. Yes, there should be deportation of illegal immigrants in this country. Yes, we should do better security measures to keep people from coming in illegally. But we also have to do it humanely. And we have to do it in a process that can expedite, immigrants coming into this country legally to handle the volume, because a lot of people they waiting very, very long time just to get through the process of getting into this country, especially on you're talking about on the Mexico border. The process of immigrating from Europe is a lot different than coming in at the border at Mexico. But we can do those things. We could do everything that each side wants to get done in a humane way, but we don't. The Democrats, they pander to the friggin' far left. It goes beyond just the progressives, the far left. They're total wackos, And I'm sorry. I don't care if I were running as a Democrat. I don't care if you're upset with me because you don't like my policies and you're a far lefter. Because what's your fucking option? Your option is to vote for someone like Donald Trump instead. I'm sorry, you know it's ridiculous to think I'm going to lose your vote. I may lose your opinion. I may gain some, disgruntledness. You might be outspoken against me, but at the end of the day, you have no choice but to vote for the Democratic Party because the Republican Party is far too repulsive for them. So we do need to be, and I've been told I'm a centrist, and I think that's the best place to be because there's no way to if you pigeonhole yourself into a party of definition, there's no way to be there and find any common ground. So if you don't pigeonhole yourself and you can say, I'm for closing the border and restricting immigration and doing it in a humane way, and you can still appeal to both sides that way because you're going to be strong on immigration, but you're also going to do it humanely. Am I talking about finding ways? If you have a married couple, for example, with immigration, if you have a married couple where you have an illegal immigrant married to a U.S. citizen, put that on the fucking back burner. Don't make that one of your top priorities to go and start rooting those people out. That's a person that's an established person in this country who's probably not the criminal, probably not doing all the things that the left, the right is all worked up about immigrants raping and eating your cats and all that shit. Leave them alone, But if you do have, a population that are being incarcerated and they're undocumented, illegal, undocumented, then you find a way to get them out of the country. I don't have a problem with that. Same thing.
Yeah, Heather says Trump knew Dems were too smart to vote for him. Well, we don't know.
That is a fact, actually. That was one of the reasons why he converted to a Republican because he was told that the Dems would never go for him.
So as we go to the next pick, I keep trying because let me just name a couple of ones that you really have a problem with. You really shouldn't have a problem with. You can question it. Maybe you wouldn't want them, but John Ratcliffe, CIA director. Okay, fine. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. Mike Huckabee, a strong, an Israel ambassador to Israel. Okay, all right. Now let's have a little fun. Look. One thing we remember clearly on the last administration, how many Secretary of States were there? How many ambassador of? How many of what? We lost count, right? So we kind of figure that whoever Trump starts with, more than likely not going to be there long. We'll see how many are still there a year later, okay? But here we go. Elise Stefanik, who, look, Trump supporter, a hard Trump supporter coach, and now she's gonna be nominated.
She's a nasty, disgusting bitch. All right, she was fucking auditioning for a part for the last 2 years. She is so MAGA that they probably run a train on her. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. This girl, I can't stand her. I couldn't stand her watching her talk from the beginning because she's so unapologetically up Donald Trump's ass that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, Joe, Coach, I really need you. I'm looking at something here, Coach, but I wanted to say real quick, I really need you to tell me how you feel about Elise Stefanik, because I don't know. It sounds like you were holy shit, Coach. Okay. Hey, listen. And we're going to get to something you said there. I'm not going to touch it yet, but you're going to say it a few times. Governor Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security.
I don't know. Maybe he just wants somebody at the table he enjoys looking at. Here's the problem with nominees, right? There's no qualification needed. You don't have to have any qualifications to be nominated for these positions, and I think that's now not that she's not an experienced politician. She is, obviously, but it's like, come on.
She's run for governor twice. My timeline, so it didn't put in. Did you share a link? Yeah, Heather, I shared a link on your timeline. Yes, I absolutely did, Heather. No, I not desk. Yes, I'm screwing this up. All right, Tulsi Gabbard. Because listen, let me just tell Heather, yes, not desk. Uh, I didn't have much to say about that. And Christy Nguyen, that's the first thing I thought of because I'm looking at a picture of her now, and I mean, just generally, she's not bad to look at. So I guess yeah, you got to have something that looks pretty decent at the table. So okay, I like that, Coach. Hey, I got another one for you, Coach. I got one for you, Coach. Heather, I put it on your freaking. Hold on. Um, Tom Homan, Bortazar. Tom Homan, of course, was the former acting ICE director,
Right.
and they asked him, "So how do we handle this thing? Like maybe like family separation?" Okay, Heather, hold on. Family separation, and how do we deal with that? And avoid family separation. And the guy was really cool, nonchalant. He said, "No problem. We just deport them all."
One of the comments that I heard, and first of all, I don't think he's an extremist. Even though maybe, some of what he says is more extreme than what I'm comfortable with. I think his experience makes sense for him to be involved in that department. I think that, he's certainly qualified to manage that situation. One of the things that I heard when they talked about breaking up families, when you're but the reference was about when you're breaking up families, when you have a criminal in that you're trying to deport because he's an illegal immigrant or she's an illegal immigrant and a criminal, and now you have to deport them. What about the family? What about the children's? And the comment was quite simple. Well, we separate them from their families when we send them to jail. So what's any different? And I think that's a valid point. That when you're going after a criminal element, you can't have a concern over the spouse that's left behind or the children that's left behind. This is a criminal, and you have to deal with the criminal by the way the laws allow. So that seems like almost a reasonable rationale. That you're right. You send dad to jail, and the kids are separated from the dad anyway. So if you send dad back to Mexico or El Salvador, or wherever he comes from, the kids are separated from their parent anyways. The first thing I would say is don't fucking commit crimes. First of all, if you're here illegally, you should be be on the fucking straight and narrow to start with, though. Why draw attention to yourself and do something fucking stupid to get yourself, under the spotlight? Now it doesn't matter, though. There's going to be the Gestapo police. They're going to be looking for every freaking person underneath a crack. Every time you get pulled over, they're going to run your ID. And if you don't come back clean, they're going to freaking put you in some kind of detention center. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. The thing is that they're saying, oh, really? Right? So what they said was that
Crazy.
it's going to cost a lot of money to deport these people. Okay. And this is, but in some way they believe they're going to save money by doing it. And there's no way to pull those two ends of the rope together, right? Because a lot of these people do jobs that are needed to be done that no one else is going to do, and so when you start taking those people out of the workforce, okay, you're going to force employers that have to pay their replacements at higher wages to start with to entice them to even take the job. But also on top of that, now the product at the end result has to go up in cost because you have to now pay these other employees, these entitled employees who wouldn't take the job for minimum wage. Now they want more than that. So there's no way to measure the hit on the economy. But to say that somehow you're going to save money by spending money on deporting people, I don't think it washes.
I don't see how the math works. Joining us at this time is one of our alumni and our dear friends, Heather Day. Hi, Heather.
Hello, how are y'all?
Oh God, Heather, don't try to sound like some sexy old lady who came here to be nice. Please be
I'm
yourself.
I'm not feeling real good.
Oh no.
No, I got vaccinations yesterday, so I'm a
Okay.
little.
Well, we have a tamer. We have a tamer. We have a tamer, Heather. Something you never thought was possible. So it took her to. All right. So, Coach, here. No, Heather. So I don't know. What say you? You know, Trump won. Did you know Trump won?
Yeah, I did. And he is the lead clown running the freaking clown show.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Coach, got another good one for you. Now you knew this guy was going to come back, right? Some of the greatest movies that have ever been made have had a sequel, a part three, part four. Now, hopefully, this is not one of those movies that's going to have more than two parts, since according to the Constitution, it can't have more than two parts. So let's just hope that's the way it works. But Stephen Miller, Stephen Miller, a big player in Trump's first administration, now gets a title, and I mean a title, Deputy Chief of Staff of Policy. Coach, before you say a word, I just want to get this out so I feel better, okay? Stephen Miller is a known racist motherfucker, okay? That's just like, for anyone who wants to debate that, you don't have to worry, because I'm not going to debate you, because you're too far gone to debate. If you tell me that Stephen, his family is on record telling America what a fucking racist Stephen Miller is. For those of you that say that Donald Trump is, I didn't say Donald Trump's a racist. I said for those of you that say that Donald Trump's not a racist and doesn't associate himself with racists, one of the greatest racists known in America, Coach, is now the Deputy Chief of Staff of Policy.
I think it's a tell. I think it's a tell. He was in charge, or not in charge. He was influential when it came to the policies during the COVID and trying to deal with the immigration crisis at the border, and certainly the separation. His whole idea of separating families from their or children from their families, in his view, was a deterrent. Well, if you don't want your kids taken from you, then don't come over the border. Basically, was the message that he wanted to send out. This is legitimately. I don't even know how to describe the. Not only is he racist, he is a full out, full blown racist. This is a guy whose every action can lead right back to the fact that he despises anything that is not white, pure white. If he could have everyone take a blood test and trace their lineage and deport you if you had any fucking blood outside of what he deemed this, he's an Aryan minded person. This guy would have fit right in with Nazi Germany. Yeah. But I will say this: Trump is a racist, and I don't care what other people want to say. I don't care how offensive that
I
is.
wanted you to say it, Coach. I wanted you
He's
to
a
say
racist, okay? And it's as simple as looking over his actions and his words and all the things he's done as president in the last time. Not even like as a human, just as what he did during his presidency. He's a racist. He is the one that wants to control and keep the races down and elevate the white race up. There's no question about it. You can debate it all you want, other people, but you're not going to debate it with me either, because I'm quite firm on it. And I'm not going to waste my time, because you can state fact after fact after fact with some people, and they just don't receive anything. They have their own opinions. But when you have someone like Donald Trump, this is a I defer you to my deputy of policy, so his hands are kind of like, he's kind of washing his hands of what will inevitably become racist policies by leaving it in somebody else's hands to justify it.
Ooh. Are you gonna stay quiet on this, Heather? You just listening in? So
No, I had to get away from mom's TV. It was a little loud.
yeah, so Stephen Miller, Heather. How about Stephen
Uh,
Miller? Huh?
that racist motherfucker could jump off the highest fucking bridge there is, and I wouldn't give three shits.
We needed to hear that, Heather. I mean, look, it's just. I'll say that for later on. So, Coach, I'm not finished. Nah, I'm not done. I'm not done, Coach. I got more for you, Coach. This time I'm going to give you, like, you can go to the Burger King and get you a cheeseburger or a double cheeseburger. I'm going to give you a double cheeseburger on this one. A new department has been created, Coach. It's called the Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah.
Now, before I go into that, if I'm correct, nominations by the president are for one person for that position to head that department, right?
Yes.
You don't get two people. But in this case, you got two. To run the new Department of Government Efficiency. Now, before I say their names, how efficient is it that you got two guys to do one job? So that's the first thing that caught my eye was the Department of Efficiency, and how efficient is it to have two guys do one job? And those two guys are Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. God damn it, Coach. When I heard that, I'm not kidding you, it took me back to the first time that I went to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. I don't know why. It obviously has nothing to do with the animals in the circus. It just made me think, like, holy shit, the circus is in town.
You know, to me, it's the deregulation police. I think that their job is to root out regulations that somehow interfere with capitalistic ventures. And that's always been a tug of war between regulation and a capitalistic free economy. Regulations have their purpose. Some of them are wasted on what they're meant for, and certainly can be diminished. But you just took two characters that had nothing in the world to do with anything, again, in politics, policy, administration, nothing. Okay, they're just rich people, okay, that are going to come in and try to figure out efficiency. Now, to Elon Musk's credit, and I think he's a nut, but he's very successful. And I read an article about him the other day about the tunnels that he dug in California. I don't know if you're familiar with the tunnels.
Yeah.
Okay? This is a guy, I think he knows how to get all the parts of a puzzle together. He may not create the puzzle, but he knows how to manage to make sure the puzzle gets finished. So he took what was otherwise laughed at as a project, and he said he was going to dig a tunnel. He was sick and tired of sitting in traffic, and he did it. He dug a tunnel and created this underground, freeway. And it was like, what he did is he took a current bore machine and had his people figure out how to make it more efficient. And so here goes the efficiency aspect. And they were able to make it more efficient. So it cost a lot less per mile to dig, and it dug a lot faster, and everything was great. But this is something that he didn't do himself. This is something that he hires all these engineers to try to figure out. And he has the money to back that. Same thing with Tesla as an automobile. He didn't create Tesla. He didn't create the car. The car already existed before he came along. He invested in it. He's an investor, and he has apparently some good instincts on what to put his money into to be successful. And so he's good there. But I think that if between the two, he's probably more qualified in order of trying to find efficiency, ways to improve efficiency than Ramaswamy. But these are gifts. These are gifts for being loyalists. That's what these positions are. Donald Trump can create an entire different branch of the circus, if you will, and give out hundreds of positions and fill them all in one department and call it the Department of the Looney Bin, because they're all out there vying for his approval and his support on some level. That's Elon Musk gave money, and in return he's getting this position. Okay, what is it going to amount to? Probably nothing. You're going to get deregulation regardless of what they come up with. That's an agenda that I'm sure the Senate has, is to cut regulations as much as they can cut. So it's just one of those things where, again, these are gifts to people. They're just, he's handing out certain gifts.
Yeah.
Are these things that have to go through the nomination process? It's not a cabinet situation, so it might not have to even be going through the nomination process. But it's one of those questionable things. Like, what's he thinking? Well, he's thinking, I owe these guys.
And with these two and this department, it's not a federal agency. It's not going to be an agency. It's just going to provide outside of the government council, is what they're calling, for reforming departments and cutting waste. Now, we've covered all these picks, talked about them a little bit, and some of them, like I said, you can look at them like, okay, because he couldn't pick. He did pick a bunch of yes men and women, but some of them had to look like almost legitimate. And like I said, Ratcliffe, Rubio, people like that, Wiles. You got to give. You don't have to know much about Susie Wiles. I don't either, just to know that she's loyal to Trump, and apparently she earned the spot. So, okay, and a lot of Republicans were agreeing with that. That's fine. Now, one of the biggest things that Donald Trump has bitched and cried and moaned about, like a fucking 12-year-old, 7-year-old. Everybody's out to get him. The weaponization of the DOJ. By the way, I know people. Yeah, the sham indictments, the sham January 6th committee, and the sham 60 plus court cases. And judges, some of them, a lot of them Trump appointees, the sham lawyers, the sham experts. They were all wrong. Only Donald Trump is right. I got that part. The weaponization of government, again, I was taught, if you do the crime, you do the time. If you do the deed, then you know what? Yeah, you got to pay the price. If you do wrong, you got to pay the price. And for those of us normal people, we know all the wrong Donald Trump has done, okay? So now, as I'm winding my day down, Coach, one of the good things about the Trump presidency for 4 years, you never knew what the fuck was going to happen at any given moment, whether it was going to be him on Twitter or somebody in his, something was going down, man, always going down. Then we get the news at the end of the day, near the end of the day. Donald Trump had made his pick for Attorney General of the United States.
Yeah.
Matt Gaetz. Look, Coach, before you ream Matt a couple of new assholes, just let me just, or Trump. Let's just agree for a moment, because I do believe that some of the motivation from the Democrats was politically motivated against Trump. You can't deny that. It's hard to deny that. You just don't know how much it played into it. So I'm willing to concede that. But let's go with one of Trump's famous phrases. the weaponization of the DOJ. In case it might make it to Webster's dictionary after these 4 years, people. So you need to understand, just like Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, I didn't know it was actually a word, Coach. They made it a fucking word, right? So, wow. I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway,
No,
do you know why Donald Trump picked Matt Gaetz? Let me tell you why Donald Trump picked Matt Gaetz. He sent a message to the Republican Party. That's the first thing he did. Because, listen, I was listening to conservative analysts on TV and the radio, and they were all like, what the fuck? One of them's like, they sat down in the chair and said, listen, well, so-and-so's coming out. We're going to talk about Matt Gaetz. Because, yeah, I just got told that in the back. Is that serious? This guy who's a staunch conservative, right? He's like, what? So I'm having fun with this. I'm sorry, Coach. So hold on. Trump just told the Republican Party, you motherfuckers are going to do what I tell you to do, whether you like it or not. I'm going to sidestep the nomination process, the confirmation process, excuse me. You're going to do it because I tell you to fucking do it. You're going to bow down. You're going to kiss my fucking ring. You're going to kiss my ass, and you're going to suck my you-know-what. When I tell you to, when I say jump, you don't even ask me how high. You jump as high as you can jump every time. What I love about all this pick is because people mad fucking Gaetz for Attorney General. That is the definition, Coach, of the weaponization of Department of Justice. Coach, Matt Gaetz as your starting quarterback. I mean, your Attorney General.
You know, I think this is exactly what has the end result of having Jeff Sessions as his first Attorney General, right? So when he took Jeff Sessions again in his first administration, he was looking for competent people that supported him, not duly followers, not people that were going to sell their soul for him. Those people didn't exist yet. Jeff Sessions disappointed him because he wouldn't go after who he wanted him to go after. And he got rid of Jeff Sessions and brought in, Barr. And Barr realized at that point was like, I better do a little more than Jeff did if I want to keep my job. So when the Mueller report came out, he kind of shortchanged the truth in what the results were or the conclusions were of the investigation, and curtailed his comments to make like it exonerated Donald Trump, and Donald Trump loved that. But then he pushed Barr too far when it came to January 6th and trying to overturn the election, and Barr tried to tell him, it just doesn't exist. There is no corruption that we can go after. But he just wanted Barr to make statements that basically lean towards, hey, we're doing investigations on this stuff. There's suspicious activity, without any facts behind it, without any proof behind it. Now he realizes that he needs a devout follower in that position. Now, Matt Gaetz, I don't know if he's throwing in one of those fucking rubber spiders on the wall and watch it crawl down or what. I read an article after seeing that. I read an article and, it seems like the Senate isn't really, feeling it. The senators that were interviewed were like, hey, he has a right to nominate anybody he wants. There'll be a lot of questions. A lot of them said there'll be a lot of questions for Matt. There'll be a lot of questions given his history, given what he's dealing with the ethics committee, the whole sex trafficking with his business partner, all these kinds of things. It may be a hurdle, but I think it goes back to what you said. It is the litmus test of Donald Trump owning the Senate. And it is one of those things where I'm going to give you this one, and if you don't confirm that one for me, then we're no longer friends. And that's a bad position to be in when you're against Donald Trump, because he's going to go ahead. This is probably why he wants recess appointments, and he doesn't want to go through Senate confirmation of his appointees. He wants to sidetrack that. And in the Constitution, there's a provision that, because the provision in the Constitution that allows for Senate confirmation is that the senators, they confirm the appointees, and that's part of the checks and balances of the government, the legislative branch over the executive branch. But there's a provision that allows for recess appointments that don't need Senate confirmation. Now, back in the 1700s, they didn't meet every day. They didn't meet every month. They only met maybe half of the year, maybe a little bit more than half the year. So there was long-term durations in between sessions that sometimes appointments had to be made. And it allowed for the president to appoint somebody. Now, it's not the same as if they've confirmed, because then they're appointed only to the end of the session, which is normally about a 2-year span. And then they'd have to be reappointed or reconfirmed. But this may be one of those situations where, he just fucking appoints Matt Gaetz as the fucking attorney general, despite all the opposition to him being there. Now, what that does, okay, Matt Gaetz, I didn't even know this guy was a fucking lawyer. I don't know if he knows the fucking law.
I didn't either.
Maybe you don't have to be a lawyer to be the attorney general. What the fuck do I know? But Jesus Christ.
He is a lawyer.
He is a lawyer.
Yes. A lawyer. I had to look it up.
Okay. Yeah, well, I suspected as much if he's being nominated, but
yeah, he's a
what
lawyer.
It does do is he becomes the puppet at the end of Donald Trump's hand. Donald Trump will therefore have his hand all the way up the ass of the DOJ, and anything and everything that he wants done, Matt Gaetz will make sure it gets done. There'll be no pushback. There'll be no opposition. There'll be nothing. Corruption no longer is a factor. Breaking the law is no longer a factor. Okay. Presidential immunity has erased any kind of guardrail that existed on that Oval Office. So who knows what he's up to? But I guarantee you the thing that he's going to be up to, Matt Gaetz is going to be up to, is the enemy within. They're going to be going after all the opposition they can go after.
Absolutely. That's what Matt Gaetz's appointment was all about. The test of the Republicans. I dare you not to nominate him. And number two, once you get not, as a matter of fact, breaking news just a few minutes ago, Matt Gaetz has officially, effective immediately, resigned from the House of Representatives. He's no longer in Congress. Well, why would you do that if you know you have to be confirmed unless you know something? Now, that takes care of that part, but there's one more appointment. Save that one for last. Hey, Coach, did you play with like G.I. Joe and Army figures when you were a kid?
I wasn't really a fan of those kind of things, but I know a lot of my brothers and friends did. Yeah,
I was. I love playing that. Love playing that stuff. Playing war. But I know, Coach, that you're the type of guy that respects the military, military service, long-standing military service. You've got those. Sometimes it's like, man, this guy or this woman, they've been in the service 30, 40, 50 years, and they become generals and colonels and admirals. And it's like, wow, some of the most respected, again, no one knows these people. We don't know them. But the general perception is generals and colonels and admirals. You got to work your ass off, first and foremost, to get those fucking positions, okay? They're not generally just handed out to you like fucking trick-or-treat candy. And they're well-respected people. Well, until the guy who came down the golden escalator and started talking shit about knowing more than the generals and the colonels. He knows more than everybody. General Milley, who's the other guy? Is the former chief of staff. Oh God, former chief of staff, the other general.
But anyway, Kelly.
General Kelly.
Yeah.
Colonels, others that have spoken against Donald Trump have basically pissed him off. And of course, they talk about the Republicans about the DEI and the wokeness in the military and everywhere else for that matter. So you figure you need a defense secretary that fits the mold. What mold? First mode is bow down and kiss Trump's ass, no questions asked, which is what all these picks are, by the way. Second one is, give me a guy, a gal with some kind of qualifications, right? So where does Trump go? To the highest qualification he could get, a Fox News host. Peter Hegseth is now being nominated for defense secretary. The guy who, the reason why he was picked was because he screams constantly about the wokeness and the DEI and everything that's wrong in the military. By the way, to be a dictator, you must have control of your military. You cannot afford to have any colonels, generals, sergeants, captains, admiral, nothing. You can't afford to have one person question you. They must be absolutely loyal and subservient to you. Hey, looks like he's setting up that. I'm talking. Hey, listen, go. By the way, the incoming border czar, one of the co-writers of Project 2025 that Trump knows nothing about, has nothing to do with. Hey, this dictatorship, this administration is getting put
it
together.
is a dictatorship, or it's going to be a dictatorship anyway. And idiots don't realize it. They just keep going on and on and on about he's going to do us good and proud.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
No. Sorry about nothing. So yeah, Coach, Fox News host is defense secretary. Great qualifications.
Yeah, and I think that you hit it on the head when it comes to, given his stance and his outspokenness. He's there to weed out the generals and, the lieutenant colonels and, all the higher ups. He's there to weed out the ones that they deem as woke. And, that's going to be like, what his job is to do, is to get rid of the generals, give them positions where they no longer have any kind of role, or, encourage them to retire, whatever it is. Because what they want, you gotta think about Trump, right? What they want in their generals, okay, is the character that Jack Nicholson played, okay? That you can't handle the truth general. The one that will do whatever is illegal because it's proper in their minds. And that's what they're looking for, because what he got from last time was he got pushback from the military on things that he wanted to do because it wasn't constitutionally allowed. And he didn't like that. He didn't like being told that it wasn't allowed, because that's what he wanted to do. Okay. This is a guy that, talked about fucking bombing North Korea, his love, with North Korea, yet he talked about fucking dropping nuclear bombs on North Korea, and they had to kind of like skirt around him and stop sharing certain information with him in order to keep him from having these fucking crazy ideas and thoughts. So again, it's one of these, there's no more guardrails. He knows that he's not going to put anybody in a position that is not going to do exactly what he says, exactly when he says it, exactly how he says he wants it done. So I'll be watching that to see, what kind of interviews are going to come out of that as generals start leaving the military and start, giving interviews as to why they had to walk away from their post after so many years of service. There's no question that Donald Trump, if anything, any military person should just look at Donald Trump as a total coward. And I'm sure many of them do. He is the one person out of every politician I've ever seen that does not deserve to be the commander in chief of the militaries because his history demonstrates that he's a fucking bone spur coward, and those are facts on paper. So, people want to defend him. I've never heard anybody try to defend that because I don't think they can. The bottom line is he didn't serve when he was called because he found a way out that was untruthful, and yet it worked because his daddy had money. Okay.
Yeah. And supposedly encouraged his son not to avoid it as well.
Well, how many times has he been quoted as talking about, military people are suckers, Oh, I like guys that weren't captured. If he knew, this fucking guy said that about John McCain. I don't know how much you know about John McCain's time when he was.
I do. Yes, sir.
This is a guy that was tortured on a daily basis, okay? And was given the opportunity to be sent home and chose to stay there with his men because it wasn't right for him to leave them behind. And so he continued to stay tortured for all those years that he was in the prison camps. Okay. And then you're going to turn around and say he's not a fucking hero. He's not a fucking hero. Why? Why? Because he didn't fly around with a cape and save the world. This fucking guy did so much.
Because he didn't do what you would have done. Put your tail between your fucking legs and find a way to get out of there and leave your men behind.
Donald Trump would have fucking walked in the room with those freaking North Korean people and started fucking talking and telling as soon as they fucking put him in a chair, let alone, stand up to the torture and deal with it. No fucking way. That guy, first of all, he never got his position to be in Vietnam. So we know already he cowered out of that. But, this is the way he doesn't understand what military integrity is, what brotherhood within the military is, what that cohesive bond within a unit with whether it's up and down the ranks or within your own rank and file that you work with as a platoon and whatever. He has no clue of this makeup of the military to know who's a hero and who's not a hero. I've watched so many different episodes on so many different things. I mean, there are so many ways to measure a hero in the military, and they're not all about how many people they killed and how many people they saved. Sometimes it's just about an act that they did, just one thing that just demonstrated their bravery, that they demonstrated that they had it in them to do this at the time where nobody else was willing to.
Mind you, now we got to look at the Trump agenda. Trump calls it a mandate. There's no mandate. There was no landslide. So please stop that, okay? But you did win, okay? So what's important now? Trump says he will end the conflict in Ukraine in 24 hours.
What's he going to bomb Ukraine?
Right behind that, he's going to solve the Gaza problem.
God hasn't been able to do that, so he figured that one out, right?
Yeah. Like Putin's going to do what you tell him, and then Netanyahu's going to give a fuck what you say.
Putin's going in with 50,000 men.
Yeah, all North Koreans.
And Netanyahu's over there trying to annex. So Trump needs to just shut the fuck up and quit trying to be the dictator that he wants to be.
Well, he's got to take care of those, right? And then let's remember, because we're going to go into this next, I'm going to lead this next topic, how the Dems blew it. But first by saying this. So the Trump agenda. Remember, it's always been the immigration deal, okay? Mind you, there's been no immigration reform freaking since the 1980s, 90s, I believe it was. Running on the economy, right? The high gas prices, the high food prices, the housing prices, and how the Dems blew it. The biggest way the Dems blew it, folks, was messaging, okay? Really bad messaging. So I'm going to use that one first. It's an example, okay? So Trump, remember what they say, you tell a lie over and over and over and over and over again, and eventually people will stop believing it. Donald Trump, of course, has this absolute power and ability. Please give him credit where credit is due. He has tens of millions of people that believe anything he says. Literally, anything he says. Doesn't matter how they believe it or they excuse it. Okay. Now, so he runs on the economy. First of all, we've talked about this for the last 4 years since it happened. Matter of fact, when we were on the show during COVID and the lockdowns and the lockdowns, I mean, of trade, ships just freaking just out there doing nothing but sitting. We talked about inflation because if you went to school and you paid attention in school, you understood that when gas prices were low, and I'm not taking away anything Trump did for the economy. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give him credit either, but I'm not going to take away, okay? But it's just known that when people were locked inside and we watched gas prices go down, and I don't know, I can speak for Coach and me, Heather, Lori, and people that I know, we understood that, yeah, I mean, we can't go anywhere. Nobody needs any gas. So, and by the way, that was happening all over the world at the same time. All over the world. Those cargo ships and those containers that were stuck, that affected the whole world. Maybe not every single corner and nook, but basically the whole world. And then when we started coming out of it, everybody knows, and demand started going up. What happens when demand starts going up and supply can't catch up? Well, prices go up, right? That started happening all over the world. And then inflation happened. And that happened all over the world. But the United States, if I'm correct, Coach, has come out of it with the greatest economy since that. And if you look at the numbers, they're not where anybody wants it to be. It doesn't matter what party you represent. But if you look at the numbers, inflation, unemployment, the stock market, job creation, if you look at those, it's a good economy. How did the Dems blow it? How the fuck did we get from that hellhole to where we are, and you didn't get the message across to all the millions of people, Coach, that believed that the economy's so fucking bad? And I'll turn it to you with this, Coach. And here's the best part of all. For all of you bring that out there, you now have the White House, the Senate. Congratulations, you now have the House. You also have the Supreme Court. So here's what I'm expecting. January 21st, Ukraine is fixed. Give them 60 days, no more problems in Gaza. Two-state solution, everybody's happy again, because Donald Trump's going to fix everything, right? He's going to give us world peace. But more importantly, no matter what mistake he makes, no matter what he gets wrong, Coach, we're going to hear the excuses over and over again that it's somebody else's fault. But here's what I want to see as I give it to you, Coach. Hey, people, so how's Trump going to drop those prices on food and gas and housing? Since presidents don't control that, I'd like to know how he's going to do that, Coach.
There's two other factors in the economy that you didn't mention in the list, and one of them is the gross domestic product. Okay, and that's the amount of goods that we produce and ship all over the world, and we're at a benchmark high. Under Biden, it's the highest GDP ever, right?
Yep.
So that shows that the economy is also booming in terms of production. The other thing is wages. Okay. Wages have gone up proportionally to the cost of inflation and the rise in consumer goods and products.
Yeah.
This is why the Republicans are so dead set against raising the minimum wage. Okay. Because if they can keep the minimum wage down so low at that $7.50 an hour, then as the cost of those eggs go up and your income is fixed down at the bottom, you feel the pain, and they can show you the pain by saying it's because of the Democrats that you can't afford the eggs, you can't afford the bread. It's not because of the Republicans withholding them from actually increasing their income. It's because they're forcing them and allowing the employer to keep them at poverty wages. So across the board, many companies, their incomes for the employees have gone up proportionally to the rate of inflation. It's the regular worker, the everyday Joe that's working at minimum wage or slightly above minimum wage, that's fixed in their income, that there's no room for them to get the raises and the increases that they need. But it is another record that gets overlooked, is that the wage increases over the last 3 years are record breaking compared to any previous administration. But they've kept that minimum wage down so low. And let's face it, a huge population across America, certainly in red states, are minimum wage workers. And they're pigeonholed in that dollar amount. And so as the prices around them go up and their income doesn't, they feel it. And that's how the message is able to stick. The economy itself is solid, and Donald Trump will take credit for it in the end of the day. All these numbers that they ignored in attacking the state of the economy under Biden, they're going to take credit for those anyways. So it's almost like one of those things. Donald Trump came in and claimed that the cupboards were bare and we had to start all over from scratch, and we built the greatest economy in the U.S. history, and da 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 da. He's going to do thing each time. But I second what you said, is how do you bring the prices down? And there's no answer for that. There's no answer for that, because
there's no answer.
There was an answer for that. I think the Biden administration would have found that answer, because I think that is a huge part of why the Democrats struggled to get people motivated behind them, because the cost of things is still insulting. You go and you look, there's things I stopped buying because I just can't fathom paying that much money for something that was so much cheaper, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it might have been. And it's like, I'm not paying it. I'll stop using that product. I'll stop buying whatever. It's just one of those things. But how do you bring those prices down? Collusion. You have to work with the manufacturers here in this country. You have to work with it and to get those prices down. The only thing that you cannot tap into is the cost of gasoline, because unlike the cost of bread, which you can work with American companies on that, and other types of products that are American made, or at least competitive American companies exist, you can't touch these global markets. There's nothing you can do. Okay. It is the Middle East that controls the cost of gas and the cost of oil. And it's based on their whim. They will increase production if they want to bring some costs down, or they'll decrease production if they want to bring the cost up. It's really all up to them. No one else has any input whatsoever except for they do. Now, if you take it into an America, and this is why, I agree with increasing oil production and gas production in America, as long as that production stays in America. So we increase our own supply of gas and oil by tapping into fields that are under U.S. control, and we may be able to effectively introduce that into the product mainstream and bring some gas prices down, bring some oil prices down. But is it sustainable? I don't know, because you got greedy corporations that all of a sudden want to compete with OPEC, and the next thing you know, you're paying the same dollar amount, but they're just keeping the money.
Exactly. But that's the difference with crude oil. Now, like you said, that's a whole different monster. But I heard a theory, crazy. But the guy started it like this. He said, so over the last 4 years, and everybody has felt the impact on inflation and high prices of food and gas and that, da, 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 da. So has the world. And he went over that and stuff like that. He said, imagine a world where somewhere around February, March of 2025, food prices, product prices, housing prices start to miraculously, he didn't say housing, excuse me, food and goods and services prices will go down dramatically. In a world where a president doesn't control that, and I'm thinking, where the hell is this guy going? And then he says, let's remember, people, that the bulk of these products are controlled by just a select few.
Yeah.
What if those select few, and again, this is not me, folks, okay? I'm just saying what I heard. What if those people, first and foremost, what he said was, don't get this wrong. All companies, like any business, saw the opportunity after COVID to make money. Why? A lot of companies, those who didn't shut down, lost a lot of money during COVID. When you lose money, you better have a plan to try to make up that money, and some of it, if not all of it. So they raised prices. So it wasn't a big surprise. The surprise was how long it has lasted. And it has lasted throughout the Biden Harris administration. Though prices have gone down. You motherfuckers out there saying you're paying $5 for a fucking dozen of eggs. Your city's fucking, the city is shoving up your ass, or you're stupid enough to think that people are actually going to believe that bullshit. But the guy said, let me get back to the guy. He said, so imagine a world where in February or March, all of a sudden, miraculously, this prices start to drop. So what happened? What happened? And the guy was like, so what are you getting at? He said, listen, from what I hear, Trump's coming in to help the wealthy. His wealthy friends are the ones that run these corporations. Why wouldn't they? He said, it's just a scenario. Why wouldn't they say the guy who's about to give us more tax cuts, who's about to make us more money, is in office now? Hey, get on the phone. We can start dropping prices now.
You know, the companies, as you said, Ralph, there's 5 or 6, maybe a few more, but in terms of overall globally,
Hi, Lori, we love you.
Hi, Lori. Globally speaking, there's only a handful of companies that control the global markets, and so they could legitimately, and that's the collusion part of it. I was saying, where they have agreed to drop prices in exchange for something in return, which is the tax cuts. Here's another interesting thing, though, right? Donald Trump ran on this statement that he was gonna put an end to tax on tips, right? Sounds like a great thing. It sounds like something.
It really sounds good. Yeah, it sounds good.
Talking about, I own a bar. My bartenders and stuff, they work off of tips. That's a big deal. We all go to restaurants. Those waitresses and the people that work there, they're working off of tips. That's the main source of their income. All right. But here's the problem with that. To start with, okay, when a receipt goes through our machine and a tip is added, okay, that's considered income for that bartender, okay? And that income is taxed. Now, when you take away the taxation of that income, you no longer get credit for that work, okay? So when you're trying to reach your criteria for, say, Social Security, and most of your career you were a service worker, you don't meet the criteria to earn a Social Security benefit, because all your tips are no longer factored into your entitlement in achieving that Social Security. You have to have so many credits in reaching Social Security maturity and being able to do it. So right there, you're going to hammer, okay? And this is one of their goals. Okay, you get away with millions of people come off the Social Security roll if you take away the taxes on tips because they will no longer qualify for Social Security. You diminish the income for Social Security because now you're diminishing the taxes that are coming in as well. Okay, so it's an attack on Social Security, but it's a bonus for these administrators and CEOs and board of directors whose income now will all be considered tips. And they will not have to pay any taxes at all. So you got to realize there's always something behind his agenda. He made it sound like this is going to be a great thing for service workers and stuff, but it's an open-ended tax cut where you could just claim your income is tips and you don't have to pay taxes. It's that simple.
And here's another little caveat of this. The percentage of those who work on tips, who depend on tips, I believe is somewhere around 4 or 5% of the workforce. A small, minute percentage, okay? And as you just said, Coach, the idea, the premise, we love you too, Lori, and we love you so much. We expect you back next show. I do love you, though. You know I had to throw that in. On camera, too. Put some makeup on. Okay, no, seriously. So the tips. A small percentage of the workforce lives and literally depends on tips. I remember managing the kitchen at Shoney's in a little place called Kimball, Tennessee, on the way to Chattanooga, and I had this kid named Brandon. This kid made $300, man, on Friday night, and that was 37 years ago. I mean, and so anyway, the point I'm making is, you want to do what? Not tax them on tips? They don't make enough fucking money anyway. They don't pay. They barely pay taxes. Who you act like you're doing something for them? What was that, Heather?
They only make $2.13 an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you don't make enough money, so how are you helping them?
What, they gonna live in a box under a damn bridge or what?
It's a ruse. It's a ruse. You know, again, it sounds good. I'm sure that those that work for tips are hopeful that that goes on. You know, because again, there's two kinds of tips. There's a cash tip and a credit tip, right? So when you use a card, that's a tip that's accounted for. It goes through the register. It's attached to a receipt. It's recorded, and therefore there's no way around paying the taxes on it. Then you have the cash tip, which is untraceable, unknown to anybody but the person that left it and the person that picked it up. You know, but that's become a smaller percentage of the kind of tips that go on nowadays, because when people go out to restaurants, they're using a card. When they go out to bars, they're using a card. You know, we do a cash business, but we make more money off of cards than we do off of cash.
Of course.
You know?
And they got the little tip section now.
Yeah.
On that receipt. There it is, right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you're right. It is a small, but again, I don't think that it's intended for the service worker. I think it's intended for the upper echelon, the people making $1 million a year or more, you know, to have a way out of paying taxes on their income.
How the Dems blew it. One of the biggest unexplained, mysterious, trying to come up with a crazy word here, phenomenon that happened in this election. Lori said there's restaurants that don't accept cash at all in Florida. That's right. There are some in Tennessee here that don't accept no cash. They know how to make. Yeah, well, they know how to make.
Which is actually against the law, but okay. Yeah, if you read on the dollar bill, you know, it tells you quite clearly it's accepted for all debts.
So how the Dems blew it on this message? Remember when Kamala Harris's campaign, and by the way, all props to Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, 100 and something days to do this. It was incredible. It was incredible. It wasn't enough. Now, how the Dems blew it on messaging. I heard somewhere along the lines where they started sounding like Republicans and talking about gun rights and abortion, other stuff, and instead of the people, 20 million Americans didn't vote this time. They didn't even come out to vote. Biden voters that didn't vote for Harris. And by the way, I'm part of a group. I love the group, but they're starting this shit about conspiracy theory. How could she lose all the swing states? We need that investigator. You think Starlink had anything to do with that? Starlink needs internet connection. Voting has nothing to do with internet. People, please calm the fuck down. Let's be better than them, okay? It was a free and fair election, and Donald Trump won, period. But here we are. The message, coach, constantly about and this is something that's always got to me. Constantly the middle class, the middle class, the middle class. A lot of poor motherfuckers out of those 20 million that stayed home because you don't talk to me. You don't ever talk to me. You think that I may, and I'm not saying me, I was once poor, thank God I'm not anymore, but I'm saying for the poor people, and as once a very poor person, you're not talking about me. You're talking about people making 87,000, 115,000, 155. Let me tell you something, people. I grew up in a world where $80,000. Holy shit, $80,000 a year. So I know somebody. My brother, I got a cousin who makes $250,000 a year. And he's like, I gotta pay bills. I'm thinking, dude, shut the fuck up. You make 250 grand a year. Do you know the position that my wife and I would be in if we make 200? Just me by myself. He makes 250. His wife makes 200. What are you talking? But people want to talk to the middle class, and everybody is supposed to own a home and have credit cards and hey. There's a lot of us out there that never had that shit and never will, and nobody wants to talk to me. How are you going to help me? I want to be and I'm not talking about scumbags, criminals, drug dealers. Fuck all them fucking people. I ain't talking about those people. I'm talking about good, hard-working Americans, like Coach said, $7.25 an hour. What the fuck are they supposed to? Can you please talk to me? It's like, there are people out there making $20,000 a year, and these politicians are making $20,000 a day, and you won't talk to me. It was such a piss poor campaign on messaging, Coach.
The Democrats are terrible at messaging, and more so now than ever, because the message on the Republican side is very simple: hate.
Mm-hmm.
Hate and
right.
fear. If you can stoke fear and trigger their hate or tap into their biases, then you have a motivated voter. It's very simple. The Republicans got it, polished to a T. Describe the other side as the opposition and the people that are going to, take your guns away and that are going to, ruin the economy, and they're going to open borders, and everybody's going to have their parents be raped by these people and their cats eaten. This is a very easy situation for the Republicans to be in. You just demonize the other side, and you're going to get your followers motivated. Like you said, Ralph, it's really difficult when you talk about middle class. Where's the line? Where's the line start at middle class, right? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking, you know what? I know a lot of people that will never own a home, regardless of what $25,000 gift by the government to help you with your first payment.
Yeah.
They would never be able to afford a mortgage, let alone a down payment. So where's the message that you can go to them? And the problem is that there is no messaging. There is no, because everything that has to do with that has to do with handouts, right? So that's a real iffy situation. So the EBT cards, right? The food stamps, they're now EBT cards. I don't know if that's everywhere, but here in Connecticut, EBT cards. Okay, that's a stigma. They're the fact that you get it, people look at you like you're committing a crime by using them. Okay. So when you're looking at it, and then they use this, I was sitting at the bar, okay, and one of our patrons was talking about some video he watched of some girl that took out her EBT card to pay for something like a coffee or a latte, whatever, and had like $20,000 on the card. Now, I don't know how true that is. I know that there's...
I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way that they can build up that kind of money and stuff, but this is what they're told on Fox News. This was a message on Fox News that was... So now they hate even people that use the EBT cards. They can hate on them. Everything becomes demonized. And that's the thing. What we should have done as messaging, we should flip the script on them, and we should demonize the Republicans. Stop trying to be the party of bipartisanship. Fuck them all. Okay, start going after them. Start calling a racist a racist. Start calling a fucking asshole an asshole. Start.
I do.
How hypocrisy works in these people. Start making a joke of these jokers. But we don't do that. We're always trying to take the high road. And, you know, that's, I told my wife, I said, one of the biggest problems is we were trying to fucking paint a rosy picture on a fucking shithole. You know, we can't do that. We have to start pointing out what the true problems in America are. And poverty is one of them. Poverty. Yep. Don't talk about the middle class. Don't talk. The middle class is doing just fucking fine. They're the ones that just got all the pay raises. They're the ones that their income went up in scale with all these, you know, these inflation.
Exactly.
It's the bottom people that are fucking being overlooked and have to live in. How about investing in fucking programs where you tear down buildings that are fucking irreparable and build new ones and have these housing projects going on where they can live in decent homes, live in these fucking projects at the same cost that it costs them now at an affordable living rate. We could do this. We can do this because if you do it on a way where you're taking out the profit involved in building and constructing, it doesn't cost down that much to build things. Okay. Materials are not all that expensive. You could create a workforce that you could pay on an hourly wage and take the profit out of it. That's the problem though. Whenever a government gets involved with another company, the company sees dollar signs and the costs become exorbitant and it's ridiculously unaffordable. But these are the messagings that they should have gone after. They should have gotten out and reach the people that really feel the heat of the economy.
Coach.
Nobody ever thinks the people that really feel it or even exist, or they act like they don't exist.
No, they don't exist. Yeah, but Coach said something so funny. Heather, you ready? I'm going to bet Heather is going to agree with me. Hey, Coach, since I'm from the streets, I can tell you that one, I've had EBT several times. Two, I know a lot of motherfuckers that done had I mean, holy shit, I promise you that there was a gap in my life of maybe 10, 15 years where probably every human being I interacted with had a fucking EBT card. Let me tell you something about an EBT card. $20,000. Let me tell you something about an EBT card. 3 weeks after you get your EBT card, you ain't got shit on that EBT card because you waited for that EBT card 3 weeks ago to put food in your house. Now, I also watch a lot of hustle with it. EBT, food stamps back in the day. Yeah, people bought dope with food. I got a story for you. Yeah, you got one? Coach, tell me. Go ahead. You got one?
All right. So back in the day, okay, food stamps were a thing. The paper ones you rip out of the coupon book, right? Yeah. So me and my brother, I'm like 10 years old, okay? This talks about inflation. Me and my brother were walking to the store. We wanted to buy a pack of cigarettes, okay? Now he's 11, I'm 10, okay? So we see a woman crossing the street. We ask her if she has $1. She doesn't have $1, but she says, "I'll give you $1 of food stamp." And so we took it. Yeah, we'll take the $1 food stamp. I went into the store with that $1 food stamp. I bought a can of tuna fish and took the change and went and bought that pack of cigarettes. Isn't that crazy? Can of tuna fish was 22 cents. Pack of cigarettes was 78 cents.
But that's again, there have been hustles.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of hustles, and believe me, when I was getting $355, $400 of food stamps a month in Nashville, Tennessee in 1993, and I didn't have no money, and I could sell you $40 of food stamps for $80 or $50 cash, whatever. Hey, it's a hustle. I got to make money. But
they still do that, Ralph.
Damn right. Trust me. Nobody's got $20,000 on a EBT card. They don't even have $20 on the EBT card.
That's the thing. Is the other side is not. They're not ashamed of lying, exaggerating, and even creating this scenario, because what they want to do is tap into your biases. They want to turn you against something that they're against. And how do they do it? Manipulation. And that's the problem with the Dems. They're not trying to manipulate. They're trying to educate. They're trying to show a cleaner path, a bipartisan effort, all this. No, we should have demonized Donald Trump. There should have been commercials about Donald Trump and the world collapsing around us and him as the figure of the Antichrist. That should have been the Democrats' fucking party. They should have been demonizing him as the Antichrist and really started to motivate some of these people to have their eyes open to the fact that he's a fucking legitimate threat. Instead, they're over there talking about, student loan forgiveness. I'm all for student loan forgiveness. I paid my kids student loans. We paid for them to go to college. I'm not insulted if some kid somewhere else doesn't get fucking burdened with a freaking debt that's as big as a mortgage on a house. I'm fine with giving them a cut on that. But the whole other side demonizes the ideas.
And they shouldn't have kept Trump on fucking news every day the whole 4 years after he left office.
You are so right. Yes, you are so right. We kept him fucking relevant every day, every single day. He was talked about at least for half the day.
And he's not the fucking president. He's not even a fucking politician. He's nobody.
Heather, I said the same exact thing to my wife, is that you can blame the Democrats for not showing up and the fucking media for keeping him relevant.
Yep. And you know what?
All
these Trump supporters over on TikTok, they're having buyer's remorse. They've been looking up on the internet, what are tariffs? How do they work? Can we take our vote away?
How do you not know that shit from the fucking
They're not smart
because
people.
They wouldn't listen.
Yeah,
they would not freaking listen.
Mexico just their finance minister just came out the other day and said, we're preparing to raise tariffs on American, import because they want to raise tariffs on us. We're going to raise tariffs right back.
They can play.
That's going to happen globally. Every single fucking country, you raise a tariff on a country, they're going to raise it
right back on you.
And then we're going to be in not a recession, but a freaking depression.
Yeah, be careful. Now, how the Dems blew it. The biggest Dem of them all blew it. Joe Biden. Joe, we really appreciated 5 years ago, when you made that decision on that day after Charlottesville. And you said you couldn't do it. You just couldn't allow yourself to sit at home. And you wanted to fight for the soul of America. That message did work, and won you the presidency. Unfortunately, COVID, inflation, and all of that took a hit on you, Joe. But Joe, you should have never ran again in the first place. Period. It was already projected you weren't going to beat this guy. But you kept saying you were our best hope, which is a crock of bullshit, because they were legitimate presidential candidates in the Democratic Party. And then, of course, you run and then you fuck around and drop out after pressure so late after you were implored a few months before. Get out, Joe. Get out and give us a chance. And go ahead, coach. Take it.
You're absolutely right. And we talked about this when he was elected. You know, we did a show and I remember discussing it. We talked about he's a 4-year president.
Well, one term. One
One
term.
we felt that way back then. I felt that way. I felt he should never have come out to say he was running for a second term, because what he stole from that, and I like Joe Biden, I have all kinds of respect, but in retrospect, what he stole from that was he had all these other potential presidential nominees bow away. Gavin Newsom's a great one that comes to mind. He would not go up against Joe Biden, right? But if Joe had just not thrown his hat back in the ring and said, I was here for 4 years, I've done my job, it's somebody else's turn, what would have happened is you would have had open debates throughout a Democratic primary season where you would have had people vying for a position to gain the nomination of the Democratic Party, and eventually had somebody that achieved the majority of support from the Democrats, and people could have been gotten behind and got motivated over it. I felt like, you know, Kamala had a good chance. I didn't think that she would lose the states that she lost across the upper, you know, part of that blue area. You know, with Michigan, I didn't think she'd lose Michigan, Wisconsin, and stuff like that. I knew Georgia she was going to lose. I knew that she was going to lose Arizona. Nevada was another one. I didn't expect her to lose that one. Yeah. But it was one of those scenarios that she was last minute and she didn't have the infrastructure that allowed her to run the campaign in the way that had she had a year to actually put forth her messaging and developed a steam rolling down the hill, if you will, to really motivate the voters. People were excited at first that it wasn't Joe, and they were hopeful that you know, Kamala would win. But those were the people that were paying attention the whole time, not the ones that were absentmindedly going through life, not knowing anything about politics. And the next day they have to wake up to, you know, what do you pick, Kamala or Trump? And they don't know enough about either one of them to know how one's poisonous and one's not. And so they go with whatever the popular opinion around them is. And Trump happened to be the popular opinion. You know, but to point out, Trump got less votes in this election than he did against Biden. And so it's not a mandate. The more Americans are not more MAGA than ever before. That's not the case. He's lost MAGA supporters. He's losing some supporters now that did vote for him in this current election because they're trying to, you know, they're now becoming educated and stuff. What did happen is that the Democrats stayed home. They didn't come out in force. They took it for granted that somebody else, their next door neighbor, was going to go vote. So my vote doesn't matter. We're going to win anyways, whatever their, you know, thinking was. But they just didn't go out and vote the way that they did. I mean, Biden had a historical record. 82 million people voted for him. That's no one has ever achieved that level of vote in the history of the United States. Not even Donald Trump, as much as he thinks his landslide victory is equivalent to that. It's not. But it does come down to Kamala she was given such a short time. She could never get enough steam rolling and get that, you know, to get across to the people that don't pay attention. You know, when all you do is get your politics from commercials, you're in trouble.
And there's the last one for how the Dems blew it. Earlier, and we've said it many times, and it's something that it's commonly said. If you repeat something often enough, if you repeat a lie often enough, then people will believe it's true. One of the things that we faced in this election like never before, and we will face it from now on the regular, is disinformation. When people start to spit the stupidest, craziest shit, and you got a guy who has perfected the art of making you, and I mean his supporters, believe anything that comes out of his mouth. Don't you think you should have had a message to combat that in some way to get the point across? Something simple like, it's a lying motherfucker. I mean, something, somehow, some way to get to the American people. Like for me, I'm like, nobody looked into the camera and said, people, hold on a second, where are we at here? Fucking lies. But and the hate, that you had nothing to combat that whatsoever. And last but not least, why the Dems lost it? Because America spoke. American men spoke clearly. A white woman did not become president in 2016. You really think they were going to vote a sister in? Huh?
It's
You think
all
we're going to let? You think we're going to vote that black nigger into the? Are you out of your fucking mind? No way.
Yep.
Yet
misogyny and racism.
and yet, that was the choice. Trump was the choice. The hate, the divisiveness, the lies, the corruption, all of it that he represents, that was the choice of America. So I'm going to be the one to start final thoughts. Again, when I say the beauty about America is that you get a choice. You get to choose. You get to vote. That's our voice as American citizens. And as I've been reminded over and over again, and the right will continue to remind us, and rightfully so, the American people have spoken. Donald Trump is president elect. He will be the 47th president of the United States. The Senate, excuse me, is now in control of the Republicans. The House is in control of the Republicans. And of course, the Supreme Court of the United States is as far right as just you can get. So you guys got 2 years to get shit done. We watched the 118th Congress of Republicans be the most inept House in American history. They literally didn't get shit done. Now we're going on a revenge tour. This revenge tour is going to take the whole fucking 2 years till the next next House elections. Let me tell you something, Democrats. You got 2 years to get your shit straight. And when I say 2 years to get your shit straight, you not only have to win back the House, you have to win it back decisively. It has to start what they call those waves that will go into 2026. Because if you guys don't get this shit right,
We are booked.
man, you guys better strap in for the next 12 years because Trump is going to finish his 4. Hopefully it's just 4 and not 100. And then another Republican will come in and they'll be in there for 8 years. And although Trump, going to what Coach said, I don't know. I don't know a Republican that could, in my opinion, I think Gavin Newsom's the front runner. The Democratic Party, I don't know what Republican can or will challenge him. We'll see. But my final thought is basically this in a nutshell. Man, we're fucked.
Mhm.
We're fucked. But on this show, we're going to have a whole lot of fun over the next 4 years because I promise you, every time Trump lies, every time he doesn't come through with another fucking promise, we'll be all over it. But more importantly, I'll be sharing the stories over the course of the next 4 years of all the brain dead on social media that will blame everybody else except Trump. Coach, final thoughts?
You mentioned a few times during this show that, if you tell a lie often enough, eventually people will come to believe it. There's a second part of that kind of philosophy is that if it goes with disinformation and lying, is that if you spread enough lies and enough disinformation, people won't know what to believe. And that's more, I think, damaging than believing a lie is not knowing what you can possibly believe to be true.
Good
And
point.
and so when you have that, and that's a big population right now that doesn't know what side is telling them the truth and what side is lying to them. And that's the design that has been going on with other countries infiltrating themselves into this election cycle, into previous election cycles, into the social media, into the misinformation and disinformation and all this stuff. It's all to stoke a confused population that doesn't know what to believe.
Yeah. And Heather, final thoughts.
Oh, I had to walk. We're fucked. Literally.
It seems to be a general theme. Listen,
At least we know we're fucked, unlike other people that don't know. So we can start to prepare. They're going to get blindsided like a motherfucker.
now I'll say this: if Trump and his administration can manage to get out a chunk of illegals with as very little fanfare, drama, and God forbid what else. Hey, listen, all you're going to hear from us on this show is praise for doing so. I mean, no one's ever done it. No president's ever been able to do it. But, Donald Trump has done things that no president has ever done already. So maybe he can pull this off. The second thing, whether he won or Kamala Harris won, whoever the incoming 47 president was going to be is inheriting a damn good economy.
Mm-hmm.
An economy that's going to carry into 2025. It doesn't matter what the president would do. This economy is going to flow strong into 2025. It will see what policies are enacted in 2025 that may have an effect on that in 2026 when we get to the midterm elections.
Yep.
So we'll see. But one thing's for sure. Coach, pay attention so we can do it on this show. The first time Trump takes credit for the economy. Lori has final thoughts. You reap what you sow. And Lori,
Yep.
that is what I'm looking at in the next 4 years. America has spoken. Remember that Trump is supposed to fix everything, people. No more wars ever again. World peace. No more inflation. No more high prices on anything ever again. The border, illegals. He's going to fix it all. Is this what's supposed to happen in the Bible? God, coach, before we go through it, this is how it's written. I missed this chapter. I missed this chapter.
Yeah, me too.
Like Trump's, he's the chosen one that's going to transition us into paradise.
No, it's called the Antichrist.
Yeah.
We'll find
They
out.
don't even know the dang Bible.
Yeah.
They call themselves Christians and don't even know the Bible.
Oh, really nice to have Lori here this evening, as always. I'm not Lori, I Heather here this evening. And Lori, yeah, you too, of course, on the backside. Love you, honey. Get your shit together. I mean, get your mind together and get your shit together. Because
And Lori, I'm praying that hurricane ain't gonna hit you.
yes, that Florida's had enough of that. And if it does hit Florida, I command you to only hit the homes of Marco Rubio and
Gates.
Scumbag Scott, Death Santis. You know, they can have
And
that.
the other one.
Right, they can have all that shit. And the villages in Florida. Thank you for joining us this evening, everybody. This is Attack on the Politicos. It is the NGSC Sports Political Show. Please remember the website is ndscsports.com where you catch all of your current content. I know that we were away for a while in stretches, but I gotta give Donald Trump this much. He makes it hard for me to not tell you we'll be back next week. Because we know now for sure, Coach, we're gonna have something. The only question is if we're gonna go on the air. It's not gonna be a question that we have something to talk about.
This day, right?
Right.
Plenty to talk about.
Yeah, got to give Trump that. Folks, have yourself a good evening, and